And the way I describe MuleSoft to anyone out there listening, if you haven't heard one of my episodes with MuleSoft guests before, is MuleSoft connects the unconnectable. So if you're talking about data and systems that don't have a designated API to move that data between those systems, MuleSoft comes in and says, now you do. And it sounds like PwC is the group that can implement it, because whenever I think about connecting the unconnectable, well, that sounds hard. So I need some help.
And it's not just about the connections anymore. It's all about how do you connect and how do you automate as well.
Exactly. And also the why. Like, why do I need to do it? And what should I connect in order to bring these experiences together? So let's start there. Systematically, obviously, there's the infrastructure that makes this possible, but there's also the decision-making that goes into making this possible, because I know that most customers start with a problem. Like, hey, I want to solve this problem. They don't know how to get there. So we'll start with you, Jenny. Give us an idea. Like, tell us what it means to be in this space now, because I have a feeling customers are bringing bigger problems all the time, or bigger challenges they want solved, things that they think are going to improve the customer experience for the greater of all customers, but they just don't know how to get there. Give us an idea of what's happening in the space.
Yeah, I'm glad you start with this question, Albert. It's our ethos as a consultancy is we'd like to tackle the problem, and the harder the better, I guess you could say. But I think the reality, we all know it. We're kind of normalizing out of a pandemic. I think we've seen what it accelerated in the world. I think our clients, any organization right now has got stakeholder expectations that have never been as high as they've been, or as volatile in some cases as they've ever been. And then you've got a consumerism mindset that has shifted in such a way that, every customer wants to be reached differently. They want things quicker. They want different channels. They want more digital, sometimes less human interaction. And so, I think companies right now, it's a great responsibility that they have to navigate that, but those challenges and opportunities have never been, higher or more present. So, the business problems that come from that, or the business things that need to be solved, that's what gets us up every day and gets us excited. We have a fundamental belief that it will take a digital wiring and underpinning to be able to do that. That's just the reality for any company right now. And so that then spits off a slew of other challenges and complexities that need to be addressed. And so, it gets to how to that degree of connectedness of data and connectedness of systems, and ultimately for the ultimate purpose of connecting more intimately with a customer base. I think this is an exciting time to be in the field of business. I think anybody running a business right now is wrestling with the weight of a lot of different questions from a lot of different places. And then more importantly, how to make it happen, and how to make it happen very fast.
When those requests are coming in, and of course, solutions are being developed, Patty, give us an idea of what it means for a company like MuleSoft in regards to what your team is now responsible for developing, supporting, potentially implementing in regards to these systems. Because I always say this, if you want, a tool to connect to another tool to deliver information between two tools, and they've got APIs, it's not a problem, right? It's typically not a problem, but that's not how legacy companies are built and legacy technologies are built. Give us an idea of what's happening to your side of the equation, where you're responsible for the development, the architecture, the uptime, implementation, all these things on the technical level.
Yeah, and I think this is where teaming together really does help, because as Jenny was saying, we're coming out of the pandemic, but we're all still facing tons of headwinds. Labor shortages, supply chain disruption, global inflation. We might be coming out of the pandemic. We still have energy crisis, humanitarian crisis that are going on. And like she said, ultimately, customers don't really care what your struggles are. And I think even on your past podcast, you talk about airline A and airline B, right? And which one has best customer service. Every business is being compared to the next, and customers are deciding where they receive the best customer experience. Customers want you to know who they are and treat them uniquely at every interaction. And I think this is where MuleSoft, along with PwC, how do we really come together to help our customers navigate this new world? And even when we go and deliver and connect these experiences, long-term plans are definitely necessary, but the future is becoming harder to predict every day. The next day, you don't know what's going to happen. And there's so many vectors of change that, the organizations that do thrive in the digital economy are the ones that will adapt to these changes the fastest. And that's where we're really working with. That's why I kind of brought up automation as well. The focus on growth with efficiency and sustainability, focus on productivity, the solutions that automate processes so they can do more with less. We're all together, MuleSoft and PwC, helping our customers meet those customer expectations helping them enable their digital transformations and really adopting new operating models to reduce and rationalize their operating costs. And those are the ones that are going to survive and also capture those customers that care about that every interaction that's out there.
That's phenomenal. I always think of things on the consumer level first. I know I'm not on the consultancy side anymore, but I always think for myself, what does that mean for me, right? Because I always want better, faster service. I think everyone agrees with that. And Patty, your point about comparing businesses, it's actually gotten to the point where, and maybe it's always been there, but it's clearly there now, which is people also compare industries. They don't even try to say like, oh, airline A, airline B. They're like airline A to Amazon. You know what I mean? Like they're saying this is the best of breed service. I want services like that here in this industry as well. Do you have any stories that you could share that kind of demonstrate this rapid change and the outcomes that have happened because of it? Because I think for most of us, we all learn best through stories, understanding exactly what this industry looked like before you implemented this, then it looks like this on the other side. I'd love to hear any examples you have of like that rapid change and implementation of services, because I remember a time when I was an ERP consultant. Let me tell you something, making a change took years. Like it took forever, right? And it was a pain. And this is just 2006 and 2007. Give us an idea what's happening now.
I actually think the pandemic is what really forced a lot of change happen. And even those that were kind of really legacy, I'll give you a perfect example on, when the pandemic started, the SBA put out the PPP loan to help small businesses out there to take out loans. None of the banks, whether you were a small local credit union or your big, large enterprise, behemoth banks out there, were able to actually take applications, kind of qualify those applications and be able to distribute the loans. And I've never learned so much about loan processing before, but working with partners like PwC, we were able to actually create a framework, start delivering those to these credit unions. So these are customers, their doors are shut. How do we actually go get these small businesses to apply with us to go get those loans? While they didn't have a digital infrastructure, they were forced to very quickly make that rapid change so that they can go do this. And in the meantime, SBA is like, all right, this week we're launching, $3 billion. Next week, 2 weeks later, it was like another $1.5 billion. It's like, okay, they keep releasing money, but there was no way to get that money out to the businesses. Consultancies like PwC along with MuleSoft had to come together to help these companies actually be able to leverage this program.
Okay, I got a story about that. So Mission's a small business. We were directly impacted by it. We did apply for PPP. Let me tell you something. People were freaking out because their bank didn't have a way to apply. And you would hear on the news, oh, this much has been applied for already. A number significantly greater than the allocation. And you were stuck. Like we were literally stuck. So I won't name our bank, but they were one of the last to have a portal for it. I'll tell you that much, because I could see it and feel it with other business owners, because they were like, oh, I got mine through. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We don't have a place to do this. Like it was a problem. And it definitely changed our perception of our bank. Very, like to your point earlier, right? We changed our perception of our bank very quickly because, unfortunately you can't apply unless you had an account with those banks. And so we didn't have an account with the ones that got the portal opened. I was like, this is a problem. Jenny, I didn't know if you had any similar stories.
I do. And so I'll just maybe pick a couple of my favorite customer kind of or consumer facing stories. And both of them are kind of very different vectors. But what you'll hear they have in common is to be able to like pull it off. It requires this orchestration. I think Patty used that word, but this orchestration of a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes to make it happen. It has to, by the way, be seamless to a consumer or a customer, of course, because it's a reality of expectations. But behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of stuff that had to come together and get engineered in such a way to make it happen. We happen to believe that MuleSoft is one of those leading technologies that helps make that happen. It puts the stitching together and the wiring together in a way that facilitates the movement of data and the connection of systems and that speed. But I'll give you two examples. And this is a published case study that we have. So it's one I can actually mention the name. We were instrumental in Chipotle's online ordering system, which, Albert, I'm sure you've used before, right? We all have.
I love Chipotle.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? It's a fan favorite. We were instrumental in that. And just think about all that goes on to make that happen, right? And what it has to connect to within a company's operations to know that that's what they've got to kind of generate, and the experience has to be delivered a certain way. That's just one example of something that's a changing way a consumer wants to interact or a customer wants to interact with, in this case, Chipotle, but how do they want that experience to be? And they have a necessity for a certain kind of speed. If you're Chipotle as an operator, you need to be able to take that in and forecast what those things could be. You get a lot of data from that, perhaps what people want at certain times of a day or when peaks will be. And so you can better plan for a lot of things like your labor and your ingredients and all of that. So the rubber hits the road when you kind of make those fundamental changes in how you engage with your customers. I'll give you another example. I've got to keep the name of the client confidential, but it's a large pharmaceutical company. We worked with them to help patients with diabetes find a better way to access and get their medicine. And the process before was highly manual, very paper intensive, a lot of time on the phone to be able to navigate like a treatment plan and to make sure, which as somebody on the other side of that, that's got a whole different weight than whether or not I got my burrito at Chipotle that day, right? Like it's a totally different end of a spectrum of like what it means to somebody personally and in a human level, but the experience was just such that it was just had this weight to it that made it untenable for people. And so, we kind of helped figure out for this pharmaceutical company, how do you change that entire experience of engaging with your provider to be able to get the medicine you need when you need it. And so again, same concepts of like, as soon as you engage differently with your customer or patient or whatever that vector is, there's just so much that goes into connecting. What does it mean to your operations and what does it mean to your finances? And then that has to be delivered in such a way that's seamless. The vector of growth and the consumers, they are driving so much change at companies, and the operating model changes that come with it and the channels by which we engage, it just forces a degree and a velocity of change, I think, on the technology side that's just fascinating to watch. And it's that kind of reinvention of a business and an interaction that it certainly excites us the most, but it changes the need for, say, a company and a partnership with like MuleSoft that is really kind of a hero behind the scenes to pull it off.
IT Visionaries is powered by Salesforce Platform and Dreamforce. Did you know all of the very best Dreamforce sessions are available free on salesforce.com/plus? We recommend watching the Platform and MuleSoft keynote to get the down low on doing more with less and increasing efficiencies with automation.